Hey everybody, my name is Richard and I wanted to introduce you to a project that I've been working on. Hey NaviPal, introduce yourself.
You bet. My name is NaviPal and I am here to help. Mostly, I can remind you to take medications, drink water, and make sure you don't miss any important appointments. I can also tell you jokes or a story when I am connected to an AI language model.
So what NaviPal does is it's basically like a personal assistant. It has a speaker and a microphone on the other side, plus it has a button on the top to trigger it to listen. It also has a charging port on the back which uses magnetic charging, so you don't have to worry about plugging and unplugging cables. And essentially this is here to help out with medication reminders for people who have a lot of complex medications that they have to take and different scheduling. So you can see over here, this is kind of the control board. This is all running through Home Assistant, which one of the reasons I did that is because it's very easy to make a kind of monitoring control board for a caretaker like this one. And also Home Assistant has done an amazing job with doing a local language model, so we can do this type of voice interaction without having to rely heavily on the cloud service. So it does a lot of text to speech and speech to text and really rudimentary conversation engines. Primarily that is used with Home Assistant to control a smart home, but in this case I'm using it to help out with medication reminders and to do companion stuff. So I'm going to give you an example of how that works right now. We have a couple of different meds that need to be taken, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. I'll go on a little bit more about how those are actually set up in the user interface, but it is pretty easy. Tried to make it as simple as possible. Right now it's not as easy as a lot of apps would be, but you're definitely not going to have to do a bunch of coding in order to do that. Most of it is going to be done through the GUI. So I've already set up the schedules. You can see we have Adderall, Ritalin, and I cannot pronounce the name of that one. But these meds were actually done with a kind of an example study of what a medication routine would look like for someone who has ADHD and is on the spectrum. So these are basically the logs as when the medications were taken, the current state of the medication. So we can see that this one was taken. This one is marked later, which means it hasn't been taken yet. And this one is marked taken. We can also see the next time those will need to be taken on the calendar, and we can look at a log of when things have been done. This right here is just controlling the light that's on the face of the NaviPal, and we can look at what the voice assistant is doing right now. Right now it's stuck on responding, which is just the last thing that it did, but you'll see as we go through that's going to change to listening and having it formulate a response for us. And then right here we have a couple of different events that will be triggered at different times. Since we don't want to wait for those times, I'm just going to click these buttons to show you what that is. So this one is for a drink water reminder. Oh, I might not have set that up correctly. Let's see if the afternoon's meds ones are going to work.
Hi there, it is time to take your Ritalin and have some lunch.
So it does the medication reminder, and in this case I have it waiting for 1 minute, and it's going to ask me if I took the meds, and I can answer it with whether I've taken the meds or I haven't taken the meds. So we'll just give it 1 minute for it to come back. And while I'm waiting for that, basically this is running on an ESP32S3 development board with a microphone, a speaker, a push button, and there's probably going to be a few other things to add in there in order to add additional interactions. But I'm using a pretty standard MIMS microphone here and the pretty standard audio amplifier for the audio out. You can see I have over here, this is...
Have you taken your meds yet?
Yes, I took my meds.
Thanks. I marked your meds as taken.
So now you can see on this board, all of the meds are marked as taken. So it has marked the med that was not taken before taken. This is kind of a prototype of what the board looks like. This is the development board with just a microphone and speaker on it. Of course, with this device, I do also have addressable LEDs to kind of add some sort of emoting for it. And I'm going to show you another example because it does ask you, so it is waiting after you take the meds to respond. And I'm going to show you what it's going to be like if you forget your meds. So it is a different message that responds to that.
Good evening. It's time for dinner. Be sure to take your Strattera after eating.
Yeah, so it's going to give about another minute before it's going to ask if I took those meds again. And this time I'm going to tell it that I forgot to take my meds. So while we're waiting for that, essentially what's happening now is I have a separate device here, which is basically just looking for the wake word. And when the wake word is detected, it does send the signal. So this is actually what is listening for your speech and converting that speech into text and then sending it as a query for the local large language model that is inside Home Assistant. And it actually works very well. Eventually, I would like to move the wake word into this device. That is proving to be a little problematic right now.
Have you taken your meds yet?
I forgot. I forgot.
No worries, but please make sure to eat and take your meds.
There we go. So now you can see an interaction where it is kind of a back and forth. I do plan on expanding that more and more. That is one of the primary reasons why I'm using the ESP32S3 is it has more of the types of processing powers to do a more robust back and forth conversation. Of course, that is possible right now, but it takes a few hoops to jump through. So one of the reasons that I'm persisting with this project and making this video is to hopefully get people to help me with the project and move this forward. This does have the advantage of most of the interactions are happening locally. So I have this is currently running off a Home Assistant Green that I have off over there. It does run a bunch of different things in my workshop as well. I have a similar one at my home for doing smart homes. So Home Assistant Green is a really great thing for doing smart home technology. And this is an added thing that can be done with that if you already have a Home Assistant Green. But if you don't, it's a pretty low cost factor. They run at about $100 right now for the server. And that is really all you need. There is a cloud service that they have that handles some security stuff that isn't necessary. You can do a bunch of the other things in order to make this happen without having to pay any extra fees. And it does kind of limit the amount of personalities that you have. But this also can connect to a large language model to kind of fill in the gaps for things. Most of the responses that you see here are hard-coded decision responses and automations, voice trigger automations that allow it to do the basic medication reminders, which are the important part with this project. But you can connect it to a large language model and have it tell stories and stuff like that. Let's see if Google is working again. I was having some trouble with the large language model connection, so let's see if that's going to work. Hey NaviPal, tell me a story.
Once upon a time, there was a fluffy bunny named Pip. Pip loved carrots more than anything. One day, Pip hopped into a giant garden filled with the biggest, orangest carrots he'd ever seen. But oh no! A grumpy badger was guarding them. Pip, being very brave and very hungry, made friends with the badger by sharing some delicious clover. The badger, whose name was Barnaby, smiled and let Pip eat as many carrots as he wanted. Pip and Barnaby became best friends, and they ate carrots together every day. The end.
So you can see that is actually making up that story through using Google's AI language model. You can also use ChatGPT for the language model, and I'm sure a lot of other ones are going to be coming pretty soon. But the really important factor is this is not dependent on those online servers and large language models. It does not necessarily need to have an internet connection. It just needs to have a local internet connection. So it does not need to be connected to the internet per se. It just needs to have Wi-Fi connectivity locally for the Home Assistant server in order to operate. Hey NaviPal. Hey NaviPal. What is the context of that story?
It's just a silly story about a bunny and a badger. It doesn't have a special meaning, it's just for fun.
We can also do some other things like tell jokes. Hey NaviPal, tell me a joke.
Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything.
Hey NaviPal, why was that joke funny?
It's funny because it plays on words. Make up can mean to invent something that isn't true, and it also means that atoms are the building blocks of everything. The surprise is the double meaning.
Yeah, so you can see that this is actually working with the large language model now. I did not script any of the other stuff with the story or with the joke. That is purely coming from the large language models. That again is an optional thing, but actually can be very helpful. A few things that I am going to be working on and hopefully do videos for here in the future is in the very near future is going to be adding schedules so you can have appointment reminders, and then also a thing that we talked about which I think would be very helpful for a lot of parents is having this kind of interface for a caregiver to be able to keep track of if medications have been taken. And so the idea is that this will give their medication reminders, and if the medication reminders have been ignored or passed on, put on the snooze for a little bit, and meds haven't been taken, this can actually send a notification to the caretaker in order to make sure that they can check to see that everything is okay and that meds have been taken on time and the right way. We also do want to add in calendar functionality and task list functionality so that those can give reminders for that. Another interesting thing that we talked about is some way to help supplement some type of therapy that a child or adult might be given, so that we can kind of reinforce some of the goals for that therapy or socialization training, for perhaps communication help, so that you can actually do some rudimentary stuff in communicating with the NaviPal in order to reinforce that in between sessions, and hopefully that will be beneficial. There are lots of ideas that I can think of and lots of reasons why this might be helpful to a lot of different people, and I am eager to figure out new ideas that other people have for ways to help this out. The goal of this project is essentially to take the prototype that I have here and the proof of concept and result in developing a purpose-built piece of hardware that can be installed in a stuffed animal, into an action figure, into a toy, or whatever really you want the form factor to be, but be able to tie into this kind of functionality on the back end. Of course, some of the things that do need to be solved is currently, like I had mentioned, the wake word is offloaded to a separate device, but that is functioning pretty seamlessly. And you can also just tap the button on the top in order to get it to listen to you, and it will accept commands. But ultimately, I am going to be trying to figure out a way to make it so that this isn't locked to a home where you have a server that's local. I want to eventually be able to take this anywhere with me and tap through either the internet connection on my cell phone, or even potentially have its own network connection so that it can get back to the server in order to do the stuff. Most of the speech stuff is not really that difficult to do the way it's doing it. It is very rudimentary, so even just a standard network connection should be useful to do that. I just haven't really had time to tackle that problem yet, but I know that should be a really easy problem to solve. Of course, the other thing is developing a bunch of the software and plugins for this for Home Assistant, probably initially because Home Assistant does take care of the bulk of the heavy lifting when it comes to the assistant interactions. But this is essentially an open platform. So the way I wired it up is you don't have to use Home Assistant in order to do this. If you want to connect this directly to a large language model, you can do that. One of the reasons I'm not focusing on that at first is because, as some of you may have seen, there is a rather sordid history with building a piece of hardware that is dependent on a cloud service, especially if that cloud service becomes too expensive for a company to maintain. And I don't want this to end up a project like that. I want this to end up being a project that works on equipment that you have at home. You don't have to rely on someone else hosting their own servers, and open it up to the community so you have control over the options of what this can do. But in the end, the primary thing that I want this hardware to do is to give you options to have this kind of caretaker helper interaction in something that's a little bit more than your standard assistant. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm going to be doing a bunch more videos as I'm going along and doing progress for this project. I have a couple of exciting new things that are coming down, so I'll post some small videos. I'll post some more in-depth videos of my progress with this later. Thank you very much for watching, and hope you have a great day.